time to spill the secrets.
This is Universal Secrets with Tiffany Mack and Kevin Hale.
It is Tuesday night, and you know what that means. It means it's just me tonight. It's Universal Secrets live streaming on our YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, June 25th, 2024. Hope everyone is doing well. This is going to be a different kind of a show where my bestie tonight has the night off, a planned night off. So in keeping content going, continuing with the live stream, I came up with an idea to do our version of AMA, which is kind of popular out there. Ask Me Anything. But we call it Spilling the Secrets, where we're having a friend of the show, a very good friend of the show, someone who's always given their time and energy for us, and always had some fun conversations with the guest. And so tonight it's really about the audience interacting with our guest. And did he drop? Yeah, I think he dropped. Come back. Nathaniel Gillis, demonologist, all into the paranormal, everything about Nathaniel, who is just involved with, the haunting phenomena, ghosts, high strangeness, weirdness. I mean, he's got to be weird to hang with me for a while. So come back, Nathaniel. We'll get this going, and I don't know how long to go, but we're determined to have some fun with it tonight. And there he is. Well, what's up, handsome? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's
Did the ghosts, the demons, boot you off? Did they not want you to speak tonight?
Sounds like it. There's reverb on my end.
Like, I don't hear it. So if you need to log out, come back on, we'll get it figured out.
Okay.
People in the chat, I'm not hearing anything on the background. If you all can hear anything, so I think that's probably just you. Well, you got your earbuds on, right?
There we go. We're good now, brother. Yes, okay. Great to be back with you, my friend. It's always a pleasure. And I know we missed having Tiffany on. I hope she's doing well. Wish her the best. And like I said, brother, it's great to be back with you, and I'm sure we're going to talk about interesting subjects.
We are. Let me see if I'm doing this right. This is where I get to let's see. There he is. There's that. Look at that. Spilling the secret. So again, tonight it's 100% about audience participation. Ask any question within reason. Please be a little respectful. I mean, it doesn't have to be paranormal. I mean, it could be, what you had for breakfast this morning. What are you going to do later tonight?
Right.
Do you sleep on your belly or your back? Side to side, I'm all right. I'm probably ruining some questions, but what's been up with you? Talk to us.
Man, I've been around the world in 80 days. Now, I've just been researching. I've had my head in the books, case studies, trying to sift through various theories. And I'm telling you, it's each and every corner I arrive at, each and every point and fact, it's like, okay, it's pulling on one string and everything else unravels. And, it's like, okay, I don't know what we're dealing with, but I do know that there are some behavioral patterns that are interreligious and cross-cultural. And so, like I said before, it's like, all right, yeah, I know this is real, but then what are the implications regarding the phenomenon? So each and every answer just creates another question, unfortunately.
Well, you know, when Tiffany and I do our shows, she's the one prepared. She comes with the questions. That's just her thing. She has the
Mhm.
questions. It's kind of interview mode for her, where I'm more conversational, and I'm piggybacking off her questions. And I mean,
Mhm.
not to say that I don't know who the guest is. I do my homework. I know who people are, but you know, it's a little different when Tiffany's not here, and I'm like, man, I can't. I want to do an interview. So we figured out. I reached out to you. I thought I'm gonna do this. I got to find someone who I would really just want to hang out with for an hour or
Yeah,
so
just
and
vibe out with.
shoot the shit
Absolutely.
and then turn you loose to the people. So
I
um
love it.
what give us for starters, I mean, a lot of people know who you are, but there's probably there's probably some that are, you know, getting to know you for the first time. What's the 411 with you?
So I grew up in a haunted house. My very first encounter was a full-bodied apparition of a little girl. But that entity actually evolved in its pathology. It wasn't a little girl at all. It was something, an entity, an intelligence of some sort. But after the original manifestation, it evolved into shadow figures, disembodied voices, or direct voice phenomena occurring above my head at night. Just a plethora of seemingly other beings. That's what it was wanting me to believe, that these were all separate intelligences. But at the end of the day, I realized it was one that had been wearing various masks when it manifested. But that was instrumental in getting me into this field. So originally, my research consisted of the darker nuances of the phenomenon, which we would call it demonology. And so I buried my head into ancient case studies of hauntings, malevolent hauntings, and that, like I said, bridged into possession cases. And then I kind of realized that what I thought I was studying, I wasn't studying at all, right? And so I believed at first that obviously, these entities that we're calling aliens now have certain pathologies and behavioral patterns that mirror the alien, right?
Mhm.
And the demonic. And so, what I started to do early on in my career is draw these corollaries, these intersectionalities between the two.
Right.
Not that one is the other or vice versa. It's just that whatever we're dealing with, they're seemingly employing the same tactics on our species. And so I started out in early Mesopotamian texts, ritual bowls, and just read myself up all the way to modernity. And now I'm kind of carving out a niche field called necronetics, which is the self-replication of species, including hybridization program, possession, and the role pregnancy has played in this field.
Uh,
So that's what I've been up to, and it's just I'm thankful to be here with you, and I'm sure we're going to get deeper into the phenomenon.
we can, and you know, I want to.
Yeah,
Well, let's speak freely and have some fun with this. So again,
sure.
tonight, again, this is spilling the secrets. It's more, actually not more. It is 100% about the guests, Nathaniel, and the interaction with everyone in the chat. You know, I've got some questions that Tiffany mailed in that I'll be
Cool,
sharing
cool.
too. Um, I debated whether or not to put the red lips on to pay homage to my bestie,
There
but
we go, right?
uh,
Oh my goodness, that'd have been
I did.
hilarious.
Yeah, I didn't. All
You
right.
know,
Well, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. But
no, but here lately, been kind of interested in the way the phenomenon, at least the extraterrestrials, manifested to early contactees. If you compare what they did, who they did it with, and what they required or even responded to, it's no different than what our ancestors experienced in antiquity.
yeah,
None. They built altars. They were courting or allowing their condition to be courted by something. And somewhere within that dynamic between us and them, they were giving us technologies, insights to another world.
mhm,
Now, something that is very prevalent in the phenomenon is deception. And it's not, and people are going to say, okay, well, Nathaniel's an alarmist. Not really. I'm a realist. And the fact is that in many cases, what we are being presented with, even with what we're witnessing, is not accurate. It's not accurate. And so I and others in the field we're kind of in a niche within ourselves. But what we're trying to understand is why the phenomenon is so deceptive and how we can vet some of the guides, some of the apparitions, and dare I say, some of the aliens that are appearing to us right now. But even with the occult connection originating in antiquity, now in modernity, our leading scientist
Mhm.
is going out into undisclosed locations, building altars, hoping to conjure whatever this phenomenon is. And somewhere along that line, he is being given technology, which is then being given out and disseminated to black budget programs, wherein we back engineer, reverse engineer them. But my point is, if these are aliens, why are they responding to altars?
Mhm.
Why are they responding to incantations? So my position is that I don't believe we're dealing with demons or aliens. My personal position is that whatever we're in proximity of is wearing both as archetypes, leaning in and out of them, just as they did with our ancestors. Oh, we're ghosts. Then
Mhm.
once you start investigating them and start interacting with them, it's quite easy to see beyond that masquerade and realize, wait a minute, there are behavioral patterns that are synonymous, right? They do not change. We change. Our perceptions, our terminologies change. But it's like Crowley said, yes, today's demons will be something else tomorrow. We'll call them demons today, but tomorrow something else will emerge from the shadows. And so what I've been doing my best right now to do is, again, it's track the bloody footprints in the snow and say, okay, why is it that our ancestors believed they were demonic? Is it possible that this intelligence created physiological constructs to create an entire mythology and none of it was real? It was the phenomenon manifesting, but
Mm.
within itself, there was no true historical record. And what we're witnessing right now, at least in hauntology, especially in hauntology, is you have people that, okay, we went to a house in Ed Warren had a case study. Well, okay, I saw a demon with horns. Okay, where can we track that to? What was that originally? What you'll realize is that in and of itself was a social construct.
Right.
And so that social construct, what people just believed about it, the phenomenon leaned into, manifested into that archetype. And now we have researchers going around saying, okay, yeah, well, that's what it is. Now, if that is possible and that has occurred, what's the difference between the extraterrestrial hypothesis? Nothing. It's just another archetype. The phenomenon has learned how to meet the needs of, okay, I'll be that, whatever you want me to be. But at the end of the day, the hybridization program's the same. The implants the implants they're using, the trackers, they're the same. Okay, the impregnation and possessing the fetus, they're the same. So it's all the same game. In what we're being told is that these are different players.
Right.
And I don't, but so that's the foundation from which maybe we can get some interaction from the chat room.
Cool. It's always a pleasure to have you on because right away I feel so much smarter listening to you.
Thank you, brother.
Always. Well, let's do this. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm gonna put myself in the background and just putting the questions up. You chime in, and if there's anything that I do put up that you don't want to respond to, you just say next, or plead the fifth, or
Right, I
whatever you
plead
want
the
to do.
fifth. I'll try to answer everything. If I don't
Mhm.
know, I'll just tell you. I'm not one of those guys that know everything and just kind of.
I would say facts are optional, but I don't want to say that. We should really try to do this. All right, what we got here? Let's see. Here you go. Nathaniel, do you get a feeling that all these phenomena are somehow related? Do you feel like
Of course.
scales are lifting a bit?
Yes. In fact, and I mentioned this on a show I recorded today.
Thank you, Charles. Yeah.
Very good. First of all, my bad. Yeah. Apologies, Charles.
No.
Great question. Great question. Because so when you're looking at the tree of phenomena, it appears that all of the ologies are merely branches. So we have hauntology, ufology, and just go on and on and on till we exhaust ourselves. But our ancestors in antiquity did not understand hauntology. They had no name for it. They had no name for demonology, UFO. No, what they had and what they believed was that they were being courted their consciousness being curated by an intelligence that was all but demanding sacrifices. And in fact, one ritual bowl, it's incredible. This gets back into what are called the Rephaim texts. But in ancient Syria, they believed, because the phenomenon told them, that if you do not give us offerings, if you do not build us altars, that we would haunt you as malevolent ghosts and as demons. And so in the ancient worldview, hauntology and ufology, all of this, they were not separate phenomena. They were all underneath the same umbrella. More importantly, perhaps, they believed and understood that hauntology, as we would call it, was simply the weaponization of hauntings on the part of the phenomenon. To where if I'm not there at a certain time, the phenomenon, instead of saying, okay, that's some completely different, no, yeah, they would manifest as what we would consider to be demonic and ghosts. So they're not different.
Okay.
It's kind of centered.
He's got to follow. Is all deception self-deception?
A measure of it. So throughout my research regarding incubi and succubi cases, I realized that there was a behavioral pattern, a thematic element that kind of punctuated the entire field. When you're dealing with, let's say, a woman in an incubus, 90% of that time, that entity will manifest to the woman and women plural, in the mask of someone else. Usually it's someone they trust. Now, I've had cases where it's been deceased lovers, living lovers. I know of one individual where it manifested as his ex-girlfriend.
Mm.
But my point is, somewhere in the literature, I noticed that it wasn't enough for the entity to manifest in the image of someone else. It was almost the invitation for the experiencer to believe in the image it was witnessing. And so it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to manifest to this experiencer in the image of a lover. That individual had to believe I was that lover.
Right.
And so somewhere in between witnessing that interface and actually moving forward with copulation or with even UFO abduction phenomenon, somewhere in between them, that experiencer believed and bought in to that mask. This just gets back to a case study I had a while ago where this woman was being taken as a child. And even though it thankfully wasn't an incubi encounter, it still goes to show us how they operate. It's the same throughout the world. What happened was it manifested to her as a little girl. They were monitoring her fertility, but what I want to highlight is that it manifested as her favorite cartoon. And she said that they did things, experiments, then they left. So she said years went by and she never experienced anything. Suddenly, right, one night she feels that creeping energy fill the room. And she knew, okay, instantly, they're here. Now, the difference between then and now is that she's taller, she's older, she's more mature. And so when it manifested again, it manifested in that same mask, in that same masquerade as her favorite cartoon character. The problem being, she no longer watched those cartoons. She no longer read those comic books. And so for a fleeting moment, the phenomenon had to improvise the incarnation it was masquerading as. Now, she said that she realized, okay, this can't be. I'm old enough to realize this cannot be a cartoon. There's something wrong here. And so she said, out of nowhere, its eyes began to move like this. And she told me, she says, Nathaniel, I don't know how to put it other than this. It felt like it was testing my belief in the image it was manifesting as. Let's move deeper. In abduction literature, that nuance is heightened to a profound degree. What we're realizing now is it's not just the image manifesting as something to the experiencer, but the experiencer at the time is also being invaded by emotions and thoughts by that entity, from the entity, designed to agree with the mask it's wearing. So, what does that mean? Essentially, it's coming to the experiencer as the image and then coming through her. In other words, manipulating her emotions to get her to believe in the mask itself. From that moment on, it's almost like permissive will. Believing in the image allows that entity to step into the role. And once that happens, all bets are off. So it's not just deception, and it's not just a thought form. Let me break it down even further. Many of these masks that the phenomenon wears are pieces of us, of our archetypes, of our belief systems. I had a case in India, it was an incubi case, where the individual had been visited by the same entity. And I asked her, I said, like, what do you mean? How do you know it's the same entity? She said, because the likelihood of one entity or several entities manifesting to her at the same time, so it's not there. It's okay, break it down. She said, well, the first time it manifested as an ex-lover. I said, okay. She said, then when I saw through the mask, it left. Then it comes back again, another night, completely different lover. And so what I'm suggesting here is it's not just deception, and it's not just a tulpa, but somewhere within this dynamic of the cognitive interface and the experiencer, we are not just thinking, we are also being thought for. And so it's coming to and it's coming through. And what we're fighting for now as a species is that piece in the middle that gives us time enough. This is some of Dr. Barry Fitzgerald's work, gives us time enough to vet that entity, just like the experiencer I was working with did. You can't be my favorite cartoon character because I don't watch that anymore. So we have to evolve.
You mean to tell me you don't watch Bugs Bunny and all that anymore? I still do.
Oh no, dude.
Bugs is still the king.
Bugs
is the king.
Oh man, I'm a Scooby-Doo guy.
And Scooby. I still the old, not this newer stuff. And I stopped with Scrappy.
No.
I'm not a Scrappy fan. Again, spilling the secrets. I mean, yes, Nathaniel's a demonologist. He's the whole paranormal background, but you can ask him anything. What'd you have for breakfast this morning?
I know what I did. I think I had a bagel from McDonald's.
Okay, there you go. See?
High ticket.
Oofy says, hey, Nathan, what kind of questions, topics would pique your interest tonight?
I don't know. I do a lot of shows, and I've always wanted these questions to come through. Then when it comes through, I'm like, I don't know. But I could kind of guide it, I guess, guide them rather. I mean, if we're looking again for a phenomenon to manifest in a sense of, okay, it's physical, that's happened. And what I'm investigating now is what needs to take place. What would a life form need to do to manipulate our reality to the point, and we've seen this in seances, to where it can build its own body from the ground up, from the anatomical level, construct a form. This happened in the skull experiment in the 90s in England, where from the ground up, like I said, it just continued to build an image. And then at one point, it began to confess to one of the researchers that I am your guide. He started walking, laughing, and saying, I am your guide. And then suddenly they realized, wait a minute. So what this suggests, though, is that in the midst of these archetypes, it's not just the demonic, and it's not just even the alien. Even some of the alleged guides that people are claiming to be in contact with aren't exactly who they claim to be. For those who are just hearing my research tonight, I would draw your attention to another case study I had where the individual his father was a remote viewer, and his father would go out of body, in body, out of body, and he would meet his guides. And the scenario was set up quite like a UFO abduction. He's out of body, but he's in the middle of a metallic room. He has beings that are flanking him on the right and left sides. He said, but one night during one session that he realized that whatever these beings were, they looked like his guides, but they didn't act like his guides. And he said that's when they both realized that the gig is up, right? Again, seeing through the mask. That's when he was slammed back into his body, and from the subdermal portion of his skin, underneath the skin to the surface, they had carved 3 different sigils subdermally, underneath to the surface. Now, the reason ufology and demonology are groping in the darkness is because these 3 symbols, they were interreligious. They made absolutely no sense. One was the Star of David. The other one was the cross. The third one was an arching Egyptian hieroglyphic, whichever you prefer. And so what I mean by that is that demonology is limited in tradition. We were led to believe that whatever these things are, right, they would follow holy water. They'll be afraid of the cross. And they're not. That's a problem. Matter of fact, they were not only transcending that microcosm, but they were using our religious traditions in almost like an alchemical formula or a mathematical equation. And when they were added up together in proximity with each other, they transcended every known mystery school tradition.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever they are, it does appear to be esoteric in nature. But to encapsulate it all as demonic, angelic, or even alien, I think it doesn't foot the bill for whatever this phenomenon is. It's transcending all of those models and literally, I mean, leaving us underneath the stars, building an altar, trying to figure out what all of this means.
Just so people know, people are probably tuning in and like, where's Kevin? Where's Tiffany? Because it's just Nathaniel. Right. So tonight is, again, it's a one-off. Tiffany had the night off, or has the night off planned. And so I wanted to do something different where it was a 100% interaction with the audience and our guest, Nathaniel Gillis. Questions, throw the questions at him. I'm kind of Oz. You hear me? I'm in the background. I'm here. And just play along. And of course, Tiffany being away, she still wants to be involved. So she did send me some questions to throw at you. Here's one. Can you share a defining moment or experience that first sparked your interest in the paranormal?
There were
I know you mentioned the little girl, but go ahead.
Well, yeah. So in the haunted house I grew up in, going through the various emanations of this entity, there was a time where something new erupted in my room. Laying in bed, it's like 3 a.m. The stillness of the night, it's quiet. You can hear a pin drop. And to this day, it gives me chills, but I could always know when it manifested because I could feel the atmosphere in the room change. And this was no different. Everything changed. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and then suddenly I hear a conversation going on above my head. It sounded like 2 men talking to each other, just having, hey, how you doing? Doing good. Doing that kind of thing. And I could hear them enough to know they were there, but I could not understand them. Couldn't understand them at all. And that kind of pierced my heart, because I'm thinking, not just my heart, but my mind. I don't want to be like, hyperbolic or dramatic here. It was terrifying, no doubt, but it made me curious as to what this was, and it wasn't until I became friends with older researchers that have been doing this longer than I've been alive, and they pulled me aside and said, okay, this is direct voice phenomena. It's not EVPs, right? This is, and it's above your head, right? You stand up, it's above your head. You sit down, it's above your head. That is a common thematic element. And so I took that information, and then years later, I had lost my aunt Shelley, or Michelle, and she was very sickly, so I had to take care of her for a few years. But she had a heart attack. She passed away. So we moved into a new house, and one night I'm crying and I have the radio on, listening to music, looking out the window, it's raining. I'm like, man, I really do miss her, all this stuff. She would have loved the new house, all that. All of a sudden, the radio just goes white noise all the way down. And then Shelley began to speak.
Wow.
Very strange. Yeah, the hair, the hair on the back of my neck stood up because as soon as she started speaking, I had a bar stool and I had a glass of ice water on it. When that happened, the glass of ice water flew against the wall. Boom. So those were two defining moments. Now, that was me as an experiencer. As a researcher, there have been a couple times. There was one instance where I was researching magical rites in Mesopotamia, having to deal with pregnancy, Lamashtu specifically, stealing of the fetus, the missing fetus syndrome, as we call it. And I felt it, my friend. I mean, the darkness just boom. And I knew, and so I contacted a couple of my mentors. Like, okay, what do I do here? Shut it all off. Boom. So I shut everything down, turn my laptop off, turn the phone off. And later that night, I got 2 emails. Both of them were from experiencers. And both of them said that their guides told me that they'll be waiting for me when I die. Right. So the phenomenon was pushing back. It pushes back. Just recently, about 3 months ago, an experiencer that Dr. Carla Turner had actually worked with. He's been following my research. He'll probably even watch this. But he had a dream. And in the dream, an entity came to him and said, stop researching Nathaniel Gillis. Because he had been sharing my research with people at his factory and stuff. Anyways, he said, stop researching him and don't even mention his name to people. So it came back to me, and that's when I realized, okay, I need to take a break again. And this goes in to show you, it's like Jacques Vallée's control mechanism theory, and I also liken this to the Truman Show, right? When he goes to the grocery store and he's poking around, you're not supposed to be here. Right. So they begin to improvise situational. Just individuals walk in, right? A situation entirely. Yeah, get out of here. Don't look here. Look there, because you get too close to the fabric. And whatever this is, it will go out of its way. Dr. Carla Turner was told prior to her getting cancer, you are due for an adjustment. So those are some of the more dangerous, but equally fascinating experiences.
Gotcha. Okay. Charles, are you familiar with the teaching methods of Brother Coyote? Is that it?
I'm not, unfortunately not.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Maria's comment. It's like more of a comment. There was a show about people having sex with ghosts.
Yeah, this is another motif within modernity that connects to.
Is that necessarily a bad thing?
Depends on whose ghost it is. No, I'm joking. That's awful. No. But Father Sinistro of Amino was not experiencing, but encountering this particular phenomenon. He was actually going into houses within an hour of these beings manifesting and abducting women. And he was collecting secretions and excretions left on their garments. Now, it's interesting too, because it was these same entities that, very much like serial killers, were carving their own sigils underneath the eyelids of their victims. Now, again, this gets into some of the very darkest case studies in the field, but that is virtually no different than some of the case studies in the UFO abduction phenomenon. Matter of fact, Betty Hill from the Betty and Barney Hill case study, she also experienced secretions being left on her dress. And so when I'm researching cases like that, it's like, okay, how would our ancestors have interpreted that? Right. Well, they labeled it one thing, right? And people went with it and said, okay, that's what it is. My point that I'm trying to bring to the table here tonight is that they're the same methodologies, the same pathologies. And for whatever reason, The phenomenon wanted us to diversify its identity. This is that, then this is this now. And yet there is a common thematic element between them.
I lose you.
But
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
oh no, I'm here.
Yeah.
But it
Okay.
is within these case studies, though, where we start to see not just similarities when we compare and contrast the two, but we start to see that there is oftentimes a virtual reality scenario employed by the phenomenon. This happened in witch era literature. This has happened many times in incubi case studies. Like I said, where it manifests to the sight. But in doing that, we say, okay, I can trust what I see. Not so. It manifests to our vision because it wants to blind us with what we're seeing. That's what's so important to remember about this phenomenon. It's like, okay, am I dear and Edna? If you are, right, we'll test the historical record. If it is deceiving you, that will be an archetype it leans into up until it wants you to do something, wants you to obey. And then what we've seen in the field, at least I and my colleagues, is that where should have zigged, this phenomenon zags. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. There's no history. I can compare that to the historical record, right? She would have never done that. And this is something that Ted Rice articulated in his case study when he was abducted with his grandmother. They were trying to copulate with her. And she's like, no. Next thing you know, one entity leaves, comes out as his deceased grandfather. She saw through it. Wow. Now, can I suggest something that the phenomenon realized that we as a species were starting to push back? If you are so-and-so, if you're my guide, answer these questions. It should be a big deal if I poke and prod, right? And so now it's given us a new archetype, essentially a new player in the game to which cannot be vetted. We are the most ignorant of space, ignorant of the oceans. Where are they coming from? The place we know the least about.
You were talking and I'm kind of filtering through or looking through some questions, so I might have just missed this, with the fact with sex with ghosts. If there is physical evidence, then that's physical. I mean, there's physical. No, physical.
Yes, there's an apparatus, right? Yeah. Yes, there's instrumentation involved. Now this gets back into technology. There are some case studies where I'm just going to use the layman term, the witches, practitioners, whatever you want to call it, where they were being taken on demonic flights, abducted, kidnapped. And again, the theatrical element is exposed. The phenomenon leaned into the demonic archetype. And so to the female, it was the demon or a corpse, right? To the male practitioner, right? It's a female, all that. It's weird. But essentially, yeah, it's bleeding into the archetype. And then so by the time that experiencer agreed with the image, okay, I'm on the back of a mountain. We're good to go, right? I'm performing this ritual. Awesome. No, suddenly the phenomenon would get what it wanted and then stop all of it. And now they're not on a mountaintop. And it was a stage managed performance, a clinical stage managed performance, to where it was literally blinding them with their own vision. What we're seeing is not really what is occurring. And it was only then that they started realizing, all right, they're being poked and prodded by metallic objects. That's technology, my friend. Now that's in witch era literature. And so then we have to ask ourselves, where did this technology come from? And if they are in fact spirits, are we dealing with a species that is, a breakaway civilization that learn how to place their consciousness within biological avatars? It's a whole different show. But yes. So there's technology present.
They be like, wait till I get back.
I know, right? But yeah, so there's technology present, but there is also this esoteric value to it. And even if we get an antiquity, like for some of the people that don't know me or my research, I'll share this with you because a lot of people they'll follow me like I already heard that, Nathaniel. I'm like, I know, I just right. I did 3 shows this week. I hope you didn't hear that. But so yes, some of our very first case studies of this phenomenon becoming incarnate. Yes, you're talking about the primordial man stoking his fire underneath the stars. Suddenly, a thought entered his mind: go take a small piece of metal and carve my name into it. They do that. Then they take that small piece of metal, where they get it, we don't know, they did, and they go and plant it into a body, sometimes a corpse. And the consciousness of that entity trying to become incarnate commandeers the body. Now, we knew that in demonology. We just didn't know it was going to show up again in modernity until, again, extraterrestrials performed the same exact rituals. Matter of fact, I think it was 1962, one of the very first abduction accounts with the succubus. There's a man, he's on the side of the road. This entity manifests, takes him, they copulate, they take secretions and excretions. When they were done, they fill a chalice up with blood and start drinking it in front of him.
Whoa.
Where have we seen that?
Mm-hmm.
So, where people would like to strip this intelligence from anything to do with esotericism, anything to do with spirituality, I would remind them, it wasn't our idea, it was their idea. They called upon practitioners, just like Albert Bender. Build an altar, builds an altar, just like Tim Taylor. Build an altar, he does. And so at this point in my research, I've sifted through what we want from them. Now I'm looking at the intersectionalities and saying, what do they want from us? And but I won't ramble, even though I already did.
All right. It's really your show tonight. I'm just here for the ride. What we got here? Let's get to go back to Tiffany. She's conjuring herself through the show. How often are paranormal activities and hauntings and possessions actually true demonic entities, and how much is potentially psychosis?
It's hard to say. I mean, the only time, well, in terms of down to the number, most possessions that we're having now and have had, we only know because there is an inconsistency between the avatar they're choosing to inhabit and that in what they are trying to do. For instance, the language preference, we've noticed that a lot too, where the individual is possessed, and so you'll have like a man from Tennessee, next thing you know the entity's speaking Latin or French, and he doesn't know Latin and French, and so that is a temporary transient possession. We've seen that, but Malachi Martin postulated that possession is occurring even more so, but usually within the perfectly possessed. That means the person that's scanning your groceries at the grocery store could absolutely be a biological avatar by an entity that not only chose to do a walk-in, like Ruth Montgomery says, but actually decides to perfectly possess that man or woman, right? Dap it up, we're good to go. And then 10 years from now, that individual goes out too, right? Next thing you know, a whole family's missing. Who did it? Oh, that's the deacon at church. Why? So it's really hard to tell at this point who is perfectly possessed and who isn't. But Malachi Martin, again, he suggested that there are, in fact, people that we know, we've seen, that are inhabited by a parasitic entity. But I want to actually true demonic entities. Now, psychosis is often confused with this. But if we're looking at the nature of psychosis and possession, how much of it, again, let me say, how much of it is the entity and how much of it is the brain? When you have someone who has an entity within them, this, by the way, we'll talk about Jerry Marzinski's work in a second, but if they start displaying and demonstrating preferences that are not theirs, and everything in them changes, that would be seen as psychosis. Now we're going into Dr. Jerry Marzinski's hypothesis. He worked in the mental ward for 30 years, and he encountered people who were allegedly, right, psychotic, experiencing psychosis. And when he's talking to some of them, he realized that there was a life form in them, and that they had mistaken this individual as being psychotic, but they weren't psychotic at all. That was an entity within them that had chosen them to wear as a garment. So I don't particularly know how many to the number, but and I'll tell you what, I've only experienced a handful in my entire career, someone who's truly possessed. So I don't know how to answer that question because I don't know how many are perfectly possessed.
Damn it, Tiffany's stumping you and she's not even here.
Right.
All right, hold on. Again, it's spilling the secrets. It's just a one-off. This is hanging out with a friend of the show. Ask your questions, comments. It doesn't have to be all paranormal. You know, he answered my question about what he had for breakfast. It was a freaking
Right.
bagel this morning. What's your go-to music genre?
Jazz.
Really?
Smooth
Okay.
jazz. Yeah, I love Coltrane.
That's
Nice
cool.
cigar with Coltrane.
Nice. There
It's
you
over, brother. It's over.
I love it. Love it. Is there a drink of choice while you're doing that?
I don't drink nearly as much.
But do
Usually
you
it would
drink any
be
less?
right. Man, maybe once a month. But it depends. If I'm watching football, I have a beer or two. But usually it would be if I was in that environment. Hello,
Look at that.
Tiffany. Great to see you. I'm gonna circle back to your question because I
Yeah.
think I read it wrong. It's my fault. But yeah, Scotch. I love Scotch.
No.
Scotch. Remember
Love
that from Anchorman. Scotch. Right.
All right, what we got here? How much preconditioning by the experiencer may be involved to prepare them to interact with the phenomenon?
How much preconditioning by the experiencer? I don't know that there is preconditioning. There are
Don't stump the guest.
no. I'm trying to be more specific with this answer. Well, I would need to define what preconditioning is, because the phenomenon has courted specific individuals to become prophets, in which they start to disseminate their beliefs and their traditions. Now, what I would consider to be preconditioning would be the obedience of going to a location, not just right, going to a location, setting up an altar or some kind of homage to the phenomenon. That would be conditioning. Now, this gets into something else, and this is even weirder. There is a connection between some of the demons we're witnessing in demonology and what the phenomenon is authoring as an archetype. So on one hand, we have an archetype it's stepping into, right? And so some people feel would say, oh, well, that's a social construct. That's true. But in some cases, the phenomenon is authoring that construct. It's creating that image in which it can step into. And so our ancestors framed it, one individual specifically in the Bible, he framed it as the practitioner is molded by the idol, not vice versa. That happens later. That practitioner then goes and molds the idol in this world. And so what this is suggesting is that, again, it's seeking to become incarnate, and that would be a preconditioning where it's molding the practitioner in its image. It gives them an image, and then that individual goes out and molds it as something tangible. Doesn't make sense at all. It's freaky. Now, I don't want to ramble, man. I can go on and on and on.
This is you, bro. All right, let's see what we got. Let's see. Oh, here's a different one. Maria asks, "Why is there a divide? Why is there a divided in Bigfoot investigate? As in, some believe they are not paranormal, and others believe they are interdimensional."
Well, some claim to have scatology, right? The feces. Yet when people are tracking these entities, you'll have the footprints, and then out of nowhere, they're gone.
Mm.
They're gone.
Hmm.
It's almost like the skinwalker phenomenon with the dire wolf, where they tracked it. Next thing you know, they could see it, they could smell it, they could touch it.
Right.
Next thing you know, it's gone. Now,
And that's been extinct for what? Like,
oh God, hundreds and
yeah,
hundreds of years. Yeah.
right, yeah. Mm.
But what this points to is not just that the phenomenon can create physiological constructs, but that, and this is where I'm coming to as of late, that the cryptid phenomenon may not at all, at least portions of it, may not at all be what we think it is. When we've seen the phenomenon kind of, like I said, construct a cryptid, it's usually been when someone is too close to this intelligence. Number one, like I suggested prior to, where demonology was not a completely separate phenomenon to our ancestors. It was just an arm, a branch of the same tree that they weaponized to get us back into position. Don't go there, go here. In the same, this is funny because somebody asked a similar question today on the other show. The same thing occurred to Skinwalker Ranch with the cryptid, right? Where they had pseudonym Axelrod was there investigating. And next thing you know, he gets a phone call from his wife back in Virginia, I think West Virginia or Washington, one of the two. But she calls him and says, "We've got a problem." "What do you mean?" "Well, while you were there investigating, whatever this is, the phenomenon retraced your steps. And now we're witnessing a cryptid creature, a wolfman outside of our house. They could see it, they could hear it. It was tangible. And yet when they investigated, they saw the footprints, they saw the claws. It took off a bunch of bark from the tree, and yet out of nowhere, it's gone. So it's possible, again, that these cryptids, the cryptology, all of it, may very well, sticky hairy man, yeah, for sure, may very well be various arms of a single tree in which we don't know, right? It's like okay, ghost hunters. We'll go into an investigation and we're thinking, okay, it's great. They're moving the ball, they're turning flashlights on, and then something will be tripped. And when that happens, we've seen the phenomenon manifest in a more severe manner. Who are you? What are you doing here?
Tiffany says, "I've had some super kinky dreams." All right, we've
Well,
just is that the same as an incubus visitation?
It would, but a good percentage of the incubi cases would include an attempted impregnation. So this is where we get the missing fetus syndrome and them placing their consciousness into the fetus itself. By the way, in antiquity, this would be called fetal magic. And that day that I was researching, and I got those 2 emails, I was researching that very subject matter. But to her point, yes. And here's what's interesting too: not just the natural one, but experiencers will often feel a secondary presence, not just the image, but the thoughts, just everything about it speaks to an actual entity being there. And it's not just a nightmare. It's something that stepped into the dream itself.
Okay.
You want me to go down that rabbit hole real quick? That'll freak people out.
Bring it, bro.
Okay, so in the hybridization program, again, what most people want to do right now is say, okay, this is all within the spectrum of ufology, and incubi, succubi doesn't really matter; they don't exist. But the only context that we should be looking at this through, I should say, the lens we should be looking at it through, is a lens that is both interreligious, cross-cultural. It's not modern or antiquated. It's just present, right? And so what I've been able to do through what I call necronetics, which is the next step of my research, is start to connect all of the dots regarding the hybridization program. Number one, in the 16th century, the phenomenon was curating experiencers, specifically women. They were going out to undisclosed locations in the darkness. They were building altars. Sometimes they were in graveyards. What they were trying to do is contact just like our ancestors, just like Tim Taylor. Contact something in the clouds, something in the ether to gain access. Give me insights. I want to know, is my loved one still alive? And all of these different motivations. But they they believed in what's called the doctrine of Gilgal. And we see this being implemented right now by the phenomenon. The doctrine of Gilgal was that if I approach it innocently, it'll love on me a little bit, right? My intentions with the phenomenon will determine the phenomenon's intentions with me. Now, that may work with the archetypes, right? Or, okay, yeah, I believe in this, therefore it manifests as that. But in terms of what it does, it's not working. And so what they were doing is they were, again, trying to conjure these beings. Next thing you know, these women were going into nightmares. And in the middle of the nightmare steps an entity waiting out there in the darkness. Now, I want to back up and say this. Beyond the case studies, I had my own experience with the succubus. It was in a nightmare. It was a featureless shadow woman. It was straddling me. When I woke myself up, Kevin, it was physically on top of me.
No shit. Now, was this sleep paralysis, or were you able to move?
I was able to move. That's how I woke myself up. And when I woke up, my fiance at the time leaned over because I thought it was her. What is that? What is that? And then this thing dematerialized in the darkness.
Well, you're saying she saw it?
She saw it. Yes.
No.
Now, again, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm trying to tell people is that our ancestors, again, okay, yeah, it's a nightmare. No. It can structure the nightmare, carve a place for it to exist in your consciousness, and then step in. 2 places at once, 2 dimensions, consciousness coming out, and it's very strange.
Wow.
So, but anyway, right. So in the 16th century, these experiencers are experiencing, well, that's awful grammar. These experiencers were encountering these life forms. And so they're being accosted in the dream, and the phenomenon again had created this virtual reality scenario. Oh, I'm the lover. Oh, great. Okay, it's Jason. Great, right? Oh, amazing. The next day, they realized that there were scarifications and bruises on their body that directly correlated with a dream. That piqued their curiosity. Was that even a dream at all, or was I being told it was just a dream?
Yeah. Okay.
This goes down. It's very deep and dark, but we have to talk about it. So these particular experiencers, this happened, by the way, in a province in Israel called Safed. It's spelled Safed. So they're going on about their day, and they start looking down. They have ligature marks in their hands and wrists, right? They have markings, bruises. Their body's hurting, and so they're not understanding what's going on. That's one stage. The second stage was being flooded with memories that did not match their life experience. What would we call that? Possession.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And so now they're like, okay, wait a minute. I remember being in France. I never was in France. This is really weird stuff. Really weird stuff. So that's when you see the evolution of this whole scenario. Finally, the exorcists and the physicians were being inundated. Right? Okay, what do you have going on? I don't know. I'm having memory issues. There are shared language preferences. I don't know where I got this language from. There's something wrong here. And so it was from an incubus, mind you. Well, finally, these physicians they're observing and investigating the wounds, the bite marks, really weird stuff. Finally, this woman showed up. Yeah, it's been a couple months since we've seen you. Exactly right. Well, I have an update. What's the update? I'm pregnant. Yes, they performed what's called the Lavouche method. They put their thumb on the wrist. They had 2 heartbeats of the same body and 2 pulses. Now, this is the hybridization program. They started to investigate her. Okay, who are you? What is this? They interrogated the entity. Who are you? Oh, well, I died and I decided that I wanted a new body. Okay, so you're the one in the dream. Yes, I am. Okay, are you the one that impregnated this woman. That's, my friends, that's when ufology and demonology decided to say, you know what, we've got to have a conversation, because demonology said, wait a minute, we have fresh revelation. You're not the one that impregnated her. She's not just pregnant by you, she's pregnant with you. And they realized that the entity had commandeered, not just, she wasn't the host, guys. The fetus was the host.
Wow. That makes
It
sense.
had created its own social skin. This is why you fast forward to McDermott, right? Okay, yeah, we're not in the 16th century anymore. Where are we at? Oh, we're with Betty Luca. And Betty Luca is in an abduction. And she goes, okay, where are you getting these grays from? Where are they at? Those are the fetuses we're taking from you.
I know Tiffany is like, my spider senses is telling me Tiffany is like, why? You know, she wants to be here. She wants to interact.
That's fine. That's fine. But now I would love that. Because
you remember this movie real quick? The
Entity. Absolutely.
That was based on a true story, right?
Yeah, I think it was. Now, don't quote
loosely based.
I'm pretty sure it was Doris Bither. I
know Barbara Hershey was the actress.
Yes, I'm pretty sure this was a Barry Taft case.
Dr. Barry Taft on DVD.
Heck yeah! That's a wild case study.
Yeah.
But so watch this. Within possession case studies, like again, I had 100 scattered over my desk. Okay, I have book. I finally realized that possession was not the relocation of consciousness. It was the replication of life. In that pregnancy to us is possession to them. Possession to them is pregnancy to us. And it's only when you have both of them, that's when we realized, wait a minute. Because when the phenomenon took the fetus out, it also took the consciousness that was possessing it at the same time. That's when the pulses stopped. Or the second pulse, right? That's when the second heartbeat left.
Gotcha.
And it's insane. But again, if now we're looking at consciousness possessing an avatar, then we get into necronetics, which that's a whole other show, perhaps.
Again, tonight, spilling the secrets with our guest, our friend, Nathaniel Gillis. It's Q&A. It's interaction from the audience. Tiffany
Let me go see. They're probably killing me in the chat.
What do you need? What are you looking at? What was that?
I'm going to read the chats. Yeah.
Well, here's one. Here's a good one. Opie, please turn around and pick your favorite book from your bookshelf and tell us why. And
that's a good question.
Story time with Nathaniel.
Oh my God. So that's not it. That's Hans Holzer, Crowley, Skinwalker, Mac, Between Two Worlds. All right, I'll pull these two out for you.
Okay.
And then I'll kind of give you a primer if I can find it. While
you're doing that, there's a tattoo on your.
Yeah.
What is that tattoo?
Yeah, that's a cross.
Okay.
From when my old religion, man, I got a I wanted to get a pizza one time, and an old man looked at it and was like, "What's that about?" I said, "It's Calvary," and he said, "Well, thank you for your service." I was like, "Not a problem, brother, not a problem." I'm looking for, because again, if you're interested in ghosts, and
we kind of are.
All right, so watch this. This is Between Two Worlds. This is about the debunk possession cases where people have actually possessed bodies and solved their own murders. Incredible. This is another one, Spirit Possession in Judaism, Ancient and Modern. Let me get to...
While you're looking, I'm gonna blab. You know, I've been wanting to do an episode, and you're going to help me do this. I want to do an episode where it's like a true crime theme with the paranormal connection. You know, is there instances where, you know, deaths, murders have happened from a paranormal, demonic? Here, my thing is whenever I do tend to crack up, and for the record, I call BS when I hear it. But there's times when I've heard people go about saying they conjure up spirits, demons. They're into that thing. How in the hell do you conjure up a demon or a spirit and expect it to behave?
Well, by the time the actual proto-intelligence manifests, all bets are off. All
Right.
bets are off.
Exactly.
We do not know what they are. Now, the incantations they're employing, like I said before, it transcends all of our microcosms. We don't have a reference for that, my friend. An Egyptian hieroglyph underneath the skin of the surface, forget about it. Forget about it. And they're going out of their way to hide that part from us. By the way, with this occult phenomenon, or interconnectivity, the inducing of the experience of a dreamlike state, okay, sometimes defeating the ingestion of drugs to accomplish that goal, and then the impregnation, right, in the commandeering of the fetus. That's my body, right? Where have we seen that at? Oops. Possession and pregnancy. Guess where that first originated? That first originated in the red rite in the ultimate black mass. Again, pointing us directly to practitioners, where the adept, this is the red rite, when the body was failing, would go and find usually a virgin, inseminate her, create the fetus, and then tell that fetus, that body, this is now my body. I am going to be reborn in you, and commandeers that biological avatar. Matter of fact, each and every nuance of that self-replication method is found in the red rite. That's the incubus, my friend.
Right.
What do you mean? Oh, it's the incubus. And this is the dispossession of one body, taking another. Now, it's important to note, again, that the idea of possession being monopolized, I guess, by the church, horns and hooves. That's what we're hammered into, especially means like horns and hooves, right? I think, and the evidence suggests, specifically with the altar building, with the nanotechnology, carving the name, the amulets found, all of this is connected to seemingly an overlordship, where if you and I get too close to the truth, they can actually orchestrate events to get us to go one way and not see it for what it is. But literally everything in the red rite, inducing a sleep paralysis, all of it is found within one ritual. I'm probably getting killed in the comments, man. I know it. People are like, what the heck?
Now, I tell you what, I have a friend of mine, or not a friend, it's a coworker I consider a friend, he's not into the paranormal, but he said, checking out your show, you know how I feel about the paranormal, but he's like, I quote, God damn it, he's convincing. He's very convincing. You. So
well, it's a touchy subject, I admit.
All right, Charles asks, perhaps they hijack our rituals, practices, and even appearance, but when they do, they choose to look so different or even horrific.
Yeah. The remote viewer, he said that when they realized that he saw through their mask, they turned into something inhuman. And that's what caused him to have a heart attack and go in the hospital. What I think about is, when I hear that, is that at least some of these beings are parasitic. And in fact, the moment of conception and hijacking, use the word hijacking another body, that entity is by definition a parasite. It is parasitic in nature, and it's seeking a host. Now, at least some, this is true, okay? At least some of these rituals were passed down to us by them. Now, in a strange series of events, when Aleister Crowley came out with, the working Amontrol workings, the working Babylon working, all that, the whole gamut, what was happening is he was taking bastardized Kabbalistic rituals and reconstructing them in a way that he thought would be advantageous. And for some reason, when we're dealing with incantations, one word in front of the other behind, it's messed up, right? The guttural sound, even down to the notation, the liturgical, all of it. If something is twisted, it breaks the entire strand between us and them. What he was doing was just basically deconstructing it. And when you trace some of the lineage of some of these incantations all the way back to a Brahmana Major says, look, these are incantations, but you have to have a fear of God. Not to bring religion into it, but this is where it comes from. You have to have a fear of God. You have to be a holy man, right? You have to pure all this in order for these rituals to be successful. And yet in his liturgy, he was not that man. Some of these were not exactly correct. And yet when he performed them, my friend, something responded. I'm telling you, my man, it's almost like it's the shortest horror story ever told. The last man on earth was alone in his house, and there came a knock at the door. It should not have worked. Now, let's go a bit deeper. At least some of our older case studies of esotericism within the Levant, these were not constructed by us. The primordial man, right? Okay, again, I'll go back to this reference, stoking the fire. No, there's no way he just decided, ding, I'm going to create a name of an entity. Right. I'm going to just leave my fire alone, right? And I'm going to go into my personal space. I'm going to create an altar. No. And this is it's possible, my friend, that we are not the ones that are conjuring, that in some ways we are the one being conjured, and that places us right back in that symbiotic paradigm of I am not you, but I need you to be me. And this is why it's nerve-wracking, because in modernity we see, oh yeah, okay, what did you do, Mr. Scientist? I drove 2.5 hours. Where at? To an undisclosed location. Well, who gave you that location? Right? You mean 2 hours and you got stoned and you built an altar and then have the audacity to tell us that you conjured them? No, not at all, my friend. And so it's this idea that we're blinded oftentimes. And it goes back to your question. When the proto-intelligence does manifest, all bets are off.
Right.
Because now you're making eye contact with a species that has allowed us to believe we're in control. And then once we're there, remember what I told you? Masks off. Hello, how are you? Right? Are you a demon? If you want me to be. Meanwhile, they're playing with rules we're ignorant of. Anyways, but
yeah, I got to do this. Marco, you made a comment real quick. Marco, this is for you. And I put this back up here because let me find what he said. All right. So this is, I'm solo tonight and I'm trying to wing it. Damn it. Where is it? Where did he go? I know I saw. Oh, then he came with, please take down that Tiffany comment. It's distracting. Touche, bro. Touche. I gotta ask you, are you as distracted when I put this picture up of you? I mean, that's a damn good looking man right there. I mean, am I the only one?
25 years ago, dude. That was
no.
Old picture, man. Yeah. No, that was.
Well, I mean,
there's other pictures out there. Yeah,
if you come back as a ghost, spirit, whatever, are you coming back as in your prime, or are you coming back as
Brad Pitt? That's what I'm coming back as.
All right, here's a question: if there's if Hollywood did a movie about you, who is starring? Who is the lead
actually, I want to make Skin That Crawls into a motion picture. Not that it'll ever happen, but that is a dream of mine, to where I can introduce this research in a way that it'll be freaky. It'll be really weird. what Mads Mikkelsen, I think is his name. Let me look him up.
Okay.
Mads Mikkelsen. All right, so I'm gonna show the screen or show the camera. That guy.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And he will be introducing necronetics, and yeah, I mean, I don't think we've ever really had a movie about this kind of stuff. Some of it's been highlighted, but we'll see.
What's let's see. Horror movie. What's your some of your favorite horror movies?
I don't watch horror movies to get scared. Unfortunately, I mean, it is horror. That's like watching a romance. Like, that's a, what is it? It's a rom-com. Well, I don't want to be in love. What in the world? This is weird. No, yeah, the Food Channel. I'm watching. Yeah, no, I don't want to. Yeah, well, I like Dark City. Alex Proyas is a genius, and at least from my perspective, it is the most accurate representation of what we're dealing with. It was premiered, I guess, prior to The Matrix. And so if you watch Dark City and then watch The Matrix back to back, you'll see someone hijacked Alex Proyas' movie.
Mm.
And so, but in that movie, again, it's very Gnostic. And so what they're dealing with is an invasive species that was not just commandeering new bodies as hosts and as parasites, but they were inverting reality to where these people are thinking, okay, yeah, that's real. And then when they go to follow, right, the footsteps, is that tied to any historical record? Absolutely not. The phenomenon had created that for us to believe in as a way, right, of keeping us locked in this prism, not seeing beyond the veil. So Dark City for sure. I love the Sixth Sense? And not huge on the Conjurings. For various reasons.
Yeah, me neither. No.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'll tell you about it afterwards.
Kana Buddha, what the fuck in the meth baby is this? What
Yeah.
this is a paranormal show. It's a one-off. Usually my bestie Tiffany Mack is with me, and we're really, really interrogating a guest in the spirit of paranormal, the paranormal theme. But tonight, Tiffany's not here, so I'm just throwing lots of questions at our guest, Nathaniel Gillis, who demonologist, very very look at in the description. I don't do a good job of promoting this. Check his links are in the description, definitely in the YouTube description, Facebook. It should be there too. I don't know if it's we're streaming on Instagram, and I don't know if it's there, but look him up, and he'll share his social media contacts. All right, so let me get down on. All right, let me go back to, let's see, another Tiffany question. Trying to throw one out that, here's maybe one for you. How has modern technology changed the way paranormal investigations are conducted compared to in the past?
Ooh, this is going to get very deep, very quickly. So, some of my newest research is centered around what's called the Baal-Ob, Baalob. This was the necromancer of antiquity.
No, shoot.
And so, right. And so this is coming, by the way, from
One of your books.
Yeah, where the heck is it? I just had it. Right here. No, that's not it. There we go. Women's Divination, Biblical Literature by Professor Esther Amori.
Oh.
She's from Union Theological Seminary. And then this guy, T. Whitney Davies, Magic, Divination, and Demonology Among the Hebrews and Their Neighbors. That'll give you a firm foundation of what we're about to talk about. So the Baal-Ob had various definitions to it. Essentially, it was the master of the ghost or the apparition. And so within one individual, they had what they called the instrument to which that entity could amplify its signal or its voice between us and them. And so it first worked by them communicating to and through an avatar. And then the definition changed. They were unsatisfied, dissatisfied with that. And so then the term changed from just being a medium to actually being the material image. It's going to blow your mind. To being the material image of the entity, right? We call that the avatar. That's the second definition. The instrumentation, the medium, the biological, physical apparition, a physical body. And then the third definition was the entity itself. So you have the consciousness of the entity, the instrumentation to amplify the entity's voice or communication, and then you have the biological avatar of the entity. Doesn't it sound like the hybridization program?
Yeah.
Boom. This is profound because it's all encompassing. This would, again, facilitate the disability of being. And in a way, I think that it's possible our ancestors were they're doing their best to articulate some form, right? It's a parasitic life form, but it was self-replicating. And so in that replication, you had the distribution of a single consciousness into many bodies. But we would call that the Baal Ob. Now, if you were to take it out of the historical context and place it into like right now, we would call that AI.
Yeah, there you go.
We would call that AI. Mm-hmm. And then we could possibly even, this is necronetics, go back into the 16th century and say, this is why they were creating bodies in their own image. Remember? The avatar, the entity itself, which would also connect to the 16th century. They're not pregnant by the entity only, they're pregnant with it.
Tiffany, stop doing card readings. We got a guest here. Rumor has it, just because I can say this kind of stuff because it is my show, and really don't care if it offends anybody. But rumor has it, Nate, if you turn your hat backwards, panties will drop.
Oh, heck yeah! I don't know, man.
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh Lord.
Oofy. There's your curveball right for the night.
Yeah.
You expect the fastball through the changeup. All right, Oofy. Many want to know, who are you? Where did you come from? What do you want? Are humans able to comprehend the answer? Ooh.
Well, I don't. Okay, comprehend it. I'm just kidding. Okay, here's where I'm at. I don't even know that we could articulate the question. Mm-hmm. So far, just by my own experience, each and every time, okay, where did you come from? Okay, like when this phenomenon began courting our ancestors, it courted them as ancestors. It told them, hey, right, we're deceased loved ones. We've got to see through this mask, my friend. It's exactly what we're being told now. Okay, yeah, and right, and it's anyways. Could we even comprehend the answer? I don't know. My mind goes back to one of the stories from Skinwalker Ranch when a scientist from NIDS, National Institute for Discovery Science, again, direct voice phenomenon, not an EVP, not coming from a radio,
right,
directly to the individual. And the individual, I think the question was, what are you? I believe it, but that may have been the question. But the answer was, if we told you, you would not be able to comprehend it. You would never understand. So I don't think we'll ever get there. I've asked some of my mentors about that. and
Ever?
hinted around.
Come on. I can't live forever. We need to get there.
Yeah, well, I think we're still busy right now formulating the questions to ask.
Mm.
Right, okay, are they from outer space? Okay, if they're out from outer space, why are they responding to incantations?
Mm.
That doesn't mix well. If they're from outer space, why is it the skull experiment after going through various stages, right? Okay, that's a deceased loved one, or that's a guide. They left their tripod up in a room, cleared the whole room out. There's a tripod, record, left, came back the next day. There is an alien staring into the lens. Should not be there. We should not have deceased loved ones manifesting during abductions. Should not happen. So there's a problem with that. But yes, I don't know that we'll ever know who they are or where they come from. But now, what do they want? That is a little easier to deduce. Self-replication of species. At least some of them want to be worshipped.
That's
So,
I've never really thought of it that way. The wanting to be work. Yeah.
right.
You just do they need their ego stroke? Is that what?
Yeah. It's a strange. That's strange, but yeah, I mean, because now we're getting into, okay, what is prayer? What can we consider prayer to be? Right? And who tells us what prayer is? What is worship? I mean, if we get into like some of the ancient funerary rites from which some of this evolved from, yeah, it was giving them offerings, leaving something for them. And so in some of the religious traditions, it was the idea that in order for them to have an existence there, we have to facilitate that here. And then you get into the dispersion of the ghost, and then you get into the holy ghost, which is on a mission. I mean, I got to come back. I got to leave more on the table here.
Oh yeah, because well, first of all, you have a standing invite to really come on whenever you want, and remind me, have you done a show with me and Tiffany? You've done one with us,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's been
But the
years
last
ago, though,
couple,
brother.
I think you had. I think one time. I think the previous show you were with. Actually, wait a minute. I think I was doing a podcast with another guy, and you were on that one. And
Yes.
yeah, okay, all right. So Tiffany, get your shit together. All right, Marco with the question: does
Yes.
you think ghosts can be just people like us, but on another level of existence? Multiverse.
Yes, this gets back into the dispossession of one body and the possession of another. This liminal existence, right? Being present with but absent from, not here, not there, somewhere in between. My theory as it sits now, and again, I'm not saying I'm right, I'm just saying that this is
You're
what
right.
the evidence
I'll say it.
all
You're
right,
right.
thank you. This is the evidence that I've collected. It's what it's suggesting is that within the framework of virtually every hypothesis in the field, it's a breakaway civilization, it's another life form, it's alien. Uh, I think all of them can be underneath a single umbrella, and that is that we're dealing with discarnate beings, people who have hacked or at least somehow have continued their existence. This is exactly what the red right was centered around, right? I'm going to facilitate my disability of being. Not that I can't die, it's that I'm not out of a body. This would also explain, my friend, why. No, okay, let me say this. If they were doing that in antiquity, then you have thousands of years from then until now, what would you do? You would create a breakaway civilization. You would have science. Why? Because it's just exactly like what we're doing now. And so this is why when I get into conversations, especially from the movement I grew up in, people are from that worldview, they'll say things like, okay, why is technology involved? Why is technology involved with us? There would be no difference. And yet then we're getting into this idea of what would an apparition be out of body? Okay. So within possession cases, there was a common argument from the entities. I've possessed this, but this doesn't look like my body. And so there was a paradox between the apparition and the avatar it was inhabiting. And so the way they facilitated that, my friend, is that they went and they created avatars in the image of the apparitions, which, mind you, puts us right back into the Baal Ob avatar, medium, and the entity possessing it. It's insane, but yes, it's similar. Again, they're all, mind model at least is underneath all of that. It encompasses all of those theories.
I know before the show started, we were talking about how a hard stop, how long we were going to go, and I thought
Oh man,
maybe an hour, but we're 90 minutes. I'm good. How you
really
feeling?
good.
A little longer?
We
You
could do
good?
like,
You wanna wrap-
yeah, we could do a little bit, like maybe
Uh,
20 more minutes, and I
okay,
gotta.
well, yeah, I'm with you. We'll go 10, 15, and we'll try
Okay,
to wrap it up.
man, you got me. Yeah, that's wow. Time flew by. But yeah,
Well,
it would be a breakaway situation or civilization rather, because
okay.
by this time they would have deduced, okay, what's the environment like? Too many earthquakes, right? And so when we're getting to crypto terrestrials, people from the future, all of this, again, this would be an all-encompassing hypothesis. And I'm not saying hypothesis in the scientific method, but more so the philosophical term.
Gotcha. Let's keep going. Ron, Ert Radio, Ron Juan. Ron, reach out to you. You need to get him on your show. Can any spirit enter? I took my readers off. Can any spirit enter without a personal invite? Is that like a Dracula or a vampire? You has to ask permission before entering your home.
Yeah. So this is where it inspires me to believe, I should say, because this is where I come and say, all right, they're playing by different rules because they're playing a different game. Because within the archetypes that they're stepping into, there are rules. Okay. Okay, it's a demon. Okay, well, what happens? Well, we'll carve out or actually create a circle of salt, and once it's conjured, it'll stay within the circle of salt. Well, that's not happened, my friends. And so within the archetypes that the phenomenon, like I said, leans into, there are attached rules, traditions, mythologies that we believed they followed. This gets, okay, again, when we're trying to discern, is that dear Aunt Edna, there's a reason why it manifests as these individuals, because there are belief systems that we apply to that archetype. And then when we begin to interface with that, then the phenomenon, I'm talking quite literally, this has happened. Matter of fact, in the Apocrypha of John has said that. Staring into the eyes of the experiencer, literally looking like in the archetype of a deceased lover, and then peeling the mask off. And now she's staring into the eyes of a life form she didn't even know existed. The rules applied to the mask. Sorry, I feel like I'm yelling. But you get me pumped up here. This is a fascinating question. The rules apply to the mask. And so this happened early on in my research. I was like, okay, well, I was taught A, B, and C. Where did they get that from? So then I retraced those steps. Then I compared that to the evidence. And the evidence suggests that these rules accompany the mask. If the mask is wrong, the rules that we think they follow are equally fallible. Now, do they need a personal invite? I can give you a case study from the 11th century.
Oh,
okay.
Bring it.
Case study of the 11th century, where a father and his son, I don't know, his son, let's say he's maybe 18, 19, 20 years old. They are picking apples in an orchard. And the father says, all right, go over here. I'm going to go over here to this other part of the orchard to pick apples. We'll meet up at noon for lunch. See ya. Have a good day. So when his father comes back, his son is disheveled. He's got dirt all over his body, and he's acting erratically. He talks to him. It's a different voice. It's no longer his son. Something is in my kid. My son. He wasn't a kid, but you know what I mean? My son.
Right.
So they take the exorcist. They ask him, who are you? I'm so-and-so. Okay, are you human? Yes. Now, what's interesting, the term was formerly human, but human nonetheless. And so he said, okay, yes, I lived and existed, and this is my name, this is where I was killed, and all this stuff. Well, why did you choose this victim and not the father? Well, because I physically assaulted people when I was alive.
Well,
He said, and I committed my first act of violence in this part of the world, in this part of the country, at this specific orchard, underneath that specific tree, and he happened to catch my eye. Well, I thought that's what I told myself. I thought it would work like this. That's not true. So invitations help, absolutely. Matter of fact, I had a case study came through to me about 2 months ago now, where a woman and her daughter were abducted, and they were abducted in a gas station parking lot. When they went back to investigate the kind of the geography of the building, they realized that used to be woods, and in the woods that used to be it had a lot of high amount of traffic from ritual magicians. And so they cleared all that off, built, right? So there are people that are now, they're trying to discern demons or aliens, but they'll say things like, well, you have to practice the occult to be abducted. It's not true. It happens more so, but not every single time. But I'm going to say that it works better. It's easier for them to get to us if there is a personal invite. But it doesn't always work like that.
Tiffany signed off for the night. She sends, she gives us kisses. I will kiss back. All right, let's see what
Next
we got.
time, Tiffany.
Yes, it will be another time. We got to have our quarterly,
Right, get together.
Nathaniel Gillis fix.
Probably
Ufi is wanting to be worshipped the same or similar to wanting to be popular.
propagated. And this is what alarms me. It's not the abductions, it's not the building of altars, it's not blood magic. It's not even the invoking of their names. It's when they start giving doctrine in belief systems to the experiencer. Right now, one of the most famous abductees was told by a scientist, according to his testimony, phone call one day. I was in communication with the others, and the others told me to tell you, you are now initiated to move into the next stage. What's the next stage? You are now allowed to go into churches and lay hands on people. All right. Conversation has to be had.
Yeah.
What initially was that tradition of the laying hands on a person? That was an exorcism.
Right.
It was played one of two roles: to pull a spirit out or to put a spirit in. And now let me tell you, if there were no connections to the occult, I would not have even brought that point out. I wouldn't have to. Right? But when you have the likes of Jack Parsons, when you have Albert Bender, George Hunt Williamson, who, by the way, channeled extraterrestrials, in multiple voices came out of his mortal body, they're too close. But yeah, so the dissemination of tradition and doctrine, it's the same thing that they experienced in the doctrine of Gilgal, where the phenomenon was shaping the experiencer. We've seen that in real time. Well, what do you believe? Well, I believe whatever that entity told me to believe. Now you see it fostering practitioners, not just to conjure others, but to conjure it, which is, now maybe we can stop at this, which implies, my friends, that we are not the conjurers, we are the conjured. And that is a dangerous game.
Damn. All right. Whoa. Demonic possessions. What's obviously The Exorcist is the, I don't know if it's I'll speak for me. the end all be all. That's the measuring stick for me. What would be some of the movies, some of your favorites, or ones that you would recommend, or
I
that are really legit or good?
I like my personal preference is the Pope's Exorcist. It's about Father Gabriel Amort,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking. So that's one. That's pretty much the only one I
Okay.
enjoyed.
Okay.
But I'm looking for, hopefully, now this may not have happened. It may not happen because of the Vatican. But I'm hoping that Malachi Martin gets his seat at the table. I would love. I mean, he had a case study in, I think it was Japan, where he cornered a serial killer. It was in a barn, and yeah, insane, insane. I think it was his case study. It might have been another, but yeah.
Okay. What's speaking of? Thank you for bringing up the Vatican. Well, what's the Pope recently put out some information or
Mhm.
his take on the whole paranormal thing. What's what say you? What does the Vatican have in that basement of theirs, in
Mhm.
their corporate office? No offense to my Catholic friends, but what's in there? What do they have?
Oh
What do they
man,
know? You know,
I I don't think they believe these are aliens, and
you
here's why.
don't. Okay,
No,
all right,
absolutely not. I mean, to say okay, it's possible.
all
It's
right.
one thing. That's pretty much what they've admitted.
Mm,
Uh, but when okay, so disclosure allegedly is going to happen. That's what we're being told by some of the whistleblowers in our government.
and we're going to
However,
go there in a moment, but go ahead.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
But I believe that a part of disclosure just happened with the Vatican coming out with their rules on apparitions. What do
Ah,
you mean,
great.
Nathaniel? Let me give you a scenario, and I'm glad you asked. No, I'm kidding.
Bring it.
All right. So, if the phenomenon can create, construct, physiological, or create, if the phenomenon can create physiological constructs, we've seen that. We've seen that both in UFOs, in most of the time, we've seen that. We're at, guys, in apparitions. Now, apparitions play an important role in the propagation of doctrine, which we touched on that about 5 minutes ago. And if we're dealing with an intelligence that can, and I mean, again, we see this in their new outlined rules. If we're dealing with an intelligence, Kevin, that 1,000 years ago, Kevin Hale, right, lived and existed.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. And went around telling people, okay, you need to believe in this, believe in God, and all this, believe, all right. And then 2,000 years later, an apparition of Kevin Hale comes and says, by the way, you know that conversation that you have documented in these sacred texts? Yes. Yeah, look, I want to adjust some of that. You guys misunderstood it. That's what we're dealing with. It was an admission. It was an admission of a parasitic presence in this world that has the ability to revise history in the eyes of the masses. And so they were saying, look, some people said, oh, it's about AI. It's not about AI. Apparitions.
Right.
If it is of our tradition of God, this is how you vet it. And believe it or not, my friends, it puts us right in the context of this entire show. What are they wanting us to believe they are, and how can we navigate that?
Yeah. I stand by this. This is me. This is not. I'm strictly me. I'm not. This is not Tiffany. Only me. So don't uh take it out on Tiffany or anything. But my three, to me, the three greatest main questions in our lifetime. Um, is there a God? Are we alone in the universe? And what happens when we die?
Yeah.
And I've said this before. I'll say it again. I'm an atheist. you're gonna have to. But I'm very open minded, so I guess
Right.
I guess what is that? Agnostic, either whatever. So I want in my lifetime, to me, I don't have 100% proof of any of those three. I need at least one before I take my
Right.
final breath. But in my lifetime, I really feel like if there's going to be an answer of the three, I think it's the alone part. I think we're getting closer. We touched on, or you brought up the disclosure. I mean, wherever you stand politically, I don't give a shit. I mean, we're all friends here, and but keep in mind, this is where our government, our world is, our country is that one of the most most bipartisan acts of Congress is when they had the fucking hearing with Fravor, Graves, Grush. I mean, you literally had a bipartisan group wanting to fucking know what's going on in the skies. Are we alone? What's going on?
They're not going to be told.
In basic, their stories or not stories, their testimony and stuff, or especially the Congress people is that the resistance. I believe that both parties want to know, but there is still a group that is.
And why is that? Right. That's a good question as well, my friend. Why is it?
Bring it.
Well, there are certain personalities that have podcasts that are claimed. I mean, some of the biggest podcasts in the world. That
you don't want to say?
Oh, Rogan.
Yeah.
Rogan, and this is just take it with a grain of salt. And this is not like politically inspired or anything.
No.
But when Tucker Carlson said, "I think I know," he wasn't shooting in the dark. He wasn't saying what right. He was told things that he did not want to tell his wife.
Right.
This is what inspires me to believe that whatever we're dealing with has more to do with reality, not to do. And I said this, and people are going to hate it because they're like, "You just said us on the show." I did, but it's true. We're thinking of an invasion of aliens landing on the White House lawn. We never thought about a life form that can construct a dream and step into it. My friends, can I tell you how messed up that is?
Preach. Say it louder for those in the back, brother.
Right. That we do not have vocabulary to articulate that kind of intelligence to again, where you're interacting with something and you're confident it's real, and it's not real at all. It is an incarnation of the phenomenon. We've had that with the Men in Black. We've had that with Incubi. We've even had it with aliens, where they'll be talking to you and walk through the wall. And so and you get some people say, okay, Lou Elizondo, he said we would be somber. Yes, but we don't exactly know. Some people go to meeting with demons and, oh my God, it's aliens. But I think it's deeper than that. It's the question of reality. And right, not aliens on the lawn of the White House, but something zoomed in on the fabric of our world and said, okay, I'm stepping into this. Where are the words? When I woke up to that entity on top of me, and she no longer was in my nightmare, I began to question reality. Did she come from reality into my nightmare, or from my nightmare into reality?
Oh, shit.
There's no right? That's why they were called dream demons.
Yes. I like
So
that.
this is a 12-packer. This is, I'm telling you, this is why some of the best researchers in our federal government, even especially the Collins elite, were like, what I know, I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been tempted to do this as well. Just quit it all, go stock shelves, because sometimes it's too much.
Too much. Oh man. I really thought from my perspective, I thought I was gonna struggle trying to hold a show together for about an hour, and here we are closing.
You killed it, man. You killed it.
No, we did, brother. We did. In the chat, everyone brought the questions, and it much appreciated.
Great questions, man.
Let's wrap this up. Tell people it's in the description of the show, but share with them real quick. How can people connect with you, reach out to you?
So,
because you're really just, you're just on Instagram now, or
and my Facebook app is messing up now. Like, it's weird.
You do have a Facebook page, which is in the link is in the description.
Yeah, I'm not there. I'm not on it. But I still have Facebook Messenger, which I may be off of that soon too because it's not working. But you can email me at njgillis@yahoo.com. I'm on Instagram mostly, and that's where I post just little bits and pieces of my research. But in the future, I'm leaning heavily into necronetics, and I want to not just.
I'm not familiar. Explain that. What is that? Next.
It's a combination of necromancy and genetics, which is exactly what I believe this phenomenon is.
Okay. Oh.
Right. Consciousness in the fetus. Why?
Jeez. Oh, that's a whole conversation.
Yeah.
And I want
that to be a motion picture, maybe in the next decade. I don't know what's going to happen. But so you guys, I mean, honestly, I'm on Instagram a lot. The best thing to do is contact me on Instagram and then give me a follow. So I'll follow that.
This is, again, if you're a fan of Universal Secrets, check Nathaniel out. Follow him. I mean, he truly is a friend of the show. He gives his 100%. Time to the show. We love this dude. I got one last question. It's you, Fee. Should what you've said be considered carnal knowledge, and will it forever change the audience's perception of reality? Oh, that's the go home question.
Yeah. Well, I do believe some, and I've even been told by people not to share some of what I shared with you guys tonight. And there are times when I'm all alone that, I start to think, okay,
well,
that's why I don't have
the brakes real quick. You saying you're being told not to share. No, I don't. I'm sure it's not per se my show.
Yeah, like not from the DoD or anything.
In general.
Yeah.
You are in a situation where you're privy to information and people are telling you not to share.
Because of what the phenomenon will do. And that's not, Nathaniel thinks he's somebody. No, it's not true. It's not what I'm saying.
But this is what drives me crazy. I love you to death, but I'm gonna just kind of push back. Is this this whole nonsense that humans are not prepared or not ready for this kind of bullshit?
No, I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that at all. No, it was more so about safety. Okay. That was it.
Safety for you don't. All right, enough said. I got it. I'm reading.
No, I mean it was essentially because there've been times again, not just me, but other researchers I'm friends with, where they've shown up at houses, they've manifested in paranormal ways where you get too close, and even if you don't know you're too close, things will start happening. And I don't want, I don't want it to pick up. Does it make sense?
Got it.
So I am the anointed one. I'm joking.
I mean, the last thing I want to do is raise some red flags. Are you pro or con? What's your Ouija board?
I think we are the portal, not so much the Ouija board. I think it's a device. That's really it.
I struggle with again. this is probably the little skeptic side. Well, not it is the skeptic side. I struggle with the fact that you can get a board at Walmart and just conjure up bad things or make things happen with that board. Okay. But anyway.
Well, it's like I said, it's when consciousness is connected to it, it doesn't become the portal. It's our hands, right? Sometimes. It's strange.
Perhaps one should conjure you from outside the circle.
There we go. There we go.
There it is.
Make sure that ring of salt is on our margarita, and I'll be there.
What is that thing? What is the purpose of the salt circle? To keep protection. To keep something it is protection. Is right. You want to be inside of it, and it protects you from everything on the outside.
Again, right? That was the theory until they step out and beat the crap out of you, and this is some of the stuff that the Collins Elite were documenting, right? They were talking about, okay, there are people literally right down the road from me who were taking these same rituals, we're good to go, right? And no, like they would have partially manifested metal objects. What? And then the phenomenon, it's ours, not yours. Do a little bit more. That's weird. But no, man, I'm not saying I'm like a god or anything, bro. I'm not like, no, I'm just saying they were worried about me that maybe if this was true, right? That was where they're coming from. So I hope you don't think that of me, buddy. I wasn't like trying to put myself on a pedestal.
Well, speaking of thinking, saying you're a god or not a god.
Oh, God.
I posed the question. I heard this somewhere in the past, so I kind of used it. It was in my head that, why won't people believe that I am God? Mm-hmm. It's really, I'm actually now reading because I'm now found it. Why this is actually Ricky Gervais. I'm a Ricky Gervais guy.
Ricky. I love him too.
He says, why won't people believe that I am God? It's really annoying. They suddenly want proof. I shouldn't have to prove it. What happened to faith? Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's a Hitchens and a Lennox conversation right there, brother.
I'm a Hitchens guy, by the way.
Man, I loved Hitchens. Lennox too. I wish that the meeting of the minds with him and both of them would have happened when Hitchens was in good health, right? Yeah. Not when he was, suffering from cancer.
Yeah.
And both of them, by the way, but I want to make sure, dude. I'm not saying I'm anybody. Does it make sense? I hope you said that. Now I'm freaking out. Like, oh no. No, that's not what I meant at all.
No, that okay. was me. Kevin, good question, Kevin. Would you know if you met God? No, I don't think I would. I mean, if I come out of my apartment balcony every morning like I do, I water plants and I hear a voice in the sky say my name.
Say my name. Wait a minute. What? Can you imagine that? Is that you, God?
What do they say? If you talk to God, that's prayer. But if God talks to you, clinically, they say it's schizophrenia.
Yeah.
But there's something like that. G-Man, you came on, you killed it. I appreciate you. 2 hours in, brother. And we could go all night. And Tiffany's already said, "Oh, we got to get him back on. I've got so many questions, Kevin." Well, we will get you back on.
All right, man.
Brother. Love you to death. Appreciate your time. Again, check him out. He's on Instagram. He does have a Facebook page. He does have a YouTube page, by the way.
Yeah, there's actually a playlist of all my interviews, and there's a documentary I'm part of by UAMN TV. We filmed a lot of the footage, all the footage rather, in England when I lectured there at the Awakening. So it's called The Dark Side of UFOlogy, and look it up. It's cool.
Again, one of Universal Secret's favorite people. If you have it, if people in the chat, if you got your own show, reach out to him. This guy, you will be smarter. To me, I am, and he's just a genuinely sweet man too. So
Thank you, brother.
uh,
Here's that $20. So.
didn't
All right.
not a no.
No.
Tiffany says thank you to everyone. Again, Universal Secrets on Tuesday nights. We'll be back. She'll be back next week, and we've got our shows continuing. We have been talking about adding one more night, so stay tuned. We love conversation. So wrapping up this Tuesday night for our guest, our friend Nathaniel Gillis, Kevin Hale, wishing everyone a great Tuesday night and weekend. I don't know where you all are at. It's hot as hell here in the Midwest, here in Louisville, Kentucky. But everyone, have a good week, and we will be back next week for some more Universal Secrets. Final word from you. Say it. Send us away.
Well, it's great to be with you guys. Thank you for chilling with us. And if anything, I hope you gleaned something from tonight's show. If you don't like it, spit out the bones, take what you can.
There you go. Peace out, people. Good night. This has been Universal Secrets.